Hey guys, in today's video I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the needs to change for TDX's Christmas 2024 event. Anyways, I won't keep you waiting, and so let's talk about the good of TDX Christmas 2024. To start off the good, we'll first talk about General Salgar, and how he's, as you might have expected, a cool boss. Since you see, in my opinion, he's a pretty fitting final boss for this event, and both his attacks and theme are really cool, if you ask me. Although I do have one complaint, I'll talk about it later on in the video. The next cool thing about this event is how the battle pass is somewhat short this time, if you exclude tier 18 to tier 20, since personally, I think those are just optional to grind for. And the skins are pretty cool as well. And speaking of skins, let's now talk about the skins, which of course are pretty cool, but just like usual, I do have some complaints that I'll talk about later on. Anyways, let's now talk about the lore from this event, which is I guess pretty cool, but kinda rushed. And I don't know how to really explain the lore from this event, so just watch null videos about it instead. Anyways, now let's talk about the bad. And trust me, I have quite a few complaints. To first start everything off, let's talk about the event towers, and to just let you know, I have a lot to talk about. And just be warned that I will be saying some pretty controversial stuff about none other than Cryo Heli. And I'm gonna be pretty straightforward about this. But I kinda find its concept a bit lazy. This concept has already been done before with another tower, which is Cryo Ranger. And this is basically the same thing, but with a literal helicopter. And you might be asking about Icebreaker? And how it's also technically the same concept as well. And in fact you are correct, but the thing is, although this is another lazy-like concept, it makes up for it by having unique abilities, which other towers don't have. And yes, you could argue about how Slammer's top path ability is basically, partially the same thing, but let's pretend that doesn't exist, because John nerfed it to the ground. And now look at Cryo Heli's abilities, it's basically all just helicopters abilities. And hey, if you disagree, which you most likely will, it's okay, I can completely understand your reasoning. Anyways, let's now move on to gatekeeping. And for the people who don't know what gatekeeping is, basically, it's just making it so that other players aren't able to efficiently get something unless they have better stuff. And this was what happened to the Icebreaker Tower, since the only possible way to get this tower was by beating Christmas Part to Nightmare Mode. And it was pretty much mandatory to bring Dr. Golden Towers and XWM Turret, which all of these towers are really expensive to get in the shop _, making the process to get Icebreaker super difficult. And trust me, I've tried with just meta towers. Anyways, now let's talk about the bosses, and I'll try my best to keep this short. But to let everyone know, I will only talk about the newly introduced bosses to this event, and yes, even Apex Predator as well too. To start things off, we'll talk about the new and firstly introduced boss of this event, Ginger Dread. And I only have one complaint about this boss, which is why is his laser turret thing so overpowered? Since in just one attack, he basically just insta-kills my defense. But with two of these things around, if you're not prepared, then you'll get insta-killed by their lasers. Which basically means that you need to also bring Mobster as well, thanks to his 35% money back from tower deaths. The next boss that's on the list is the Elder Wendigo. And just like with Ginger Dread, I only have one complaint, which is that this boss has so much potential, but it's never used, because it only has two abilities. That being its ability to one-shot your towers, except bottom path max golden jugs, and its rage phase, which also spawns in Wendigo's _. And like I said before, there was so much potential with this boss, but I understand if the TDX team weren't able to fit this in on the deadline. The next boss we'll be talking about is the Apex Predator, and I don't really have that much complaints about it, other than its wave feeling like a filler wave, but it might just be me. And now on to the final boss of this event, General Salgar. And TBH with you, the only thing that was really annoying with this boss was his shield regeneration, which a lot of players can agree on, because if you know anything about what shield even is, then basically it's just extra health to an enemy that doesn't give back cash _. Anyways, those were some of my complaints about the bosses, and how which ones were up, and which ones had so much potential that was never used. And finally, we're at the final section of this video, the needs to change section. And trust me, I also have a lot to say in this section, as well too _. But for the people that don't know, This is a section where I'll list the top 3 major things that I think need to be changed about this event. And I'll also include some other extra stuff as well in this section. And so let's get started with the first. And for most thing that I think needs to be changed is the way to unlock Icebreaker, since technically the only possible way for newer players to even unlock this tower is by paying Robux for it. And that's simply not right for newer players. And so a change that I would do is to also add an already made loadout system to nightmare difficulties as well, so newer players can at least have chance to beat the difficulty and unlock the tower. The second change I'd do is to change General Sailgar's regen ability to instead just regen his health instead, since it at least gives the player some type of advantage against him. The third and final major change I would do is to definitely nerf the Ginger Dread's laser turret thing, because why is it so flipping off? Now onto the extra stuff I would change about the event, and the fourth I'd change would to give the Elder Wendigo more abilities, like a proper summoning ability, and to possibly give nearby enemies some type of buff to their speed or damage when it's in its rage phase. The fifth thing I'd change would be to make Apex Predator Wave feel less like a filler wave, and instead have it so that it's sorta like Wave 8, but I guess harder. The sixth and final minor change I'd do is to bring back the cool-looking railgun turrets from Halloween Chapter 4, since they were pretty cool and helpful at the same time. Anyways, that basically wraps up today's video, and I hope you enjoyed watching this as well. And hey, if you disagree with any of my opinions or suggestions to the Christmas 2024 event, let me know down below by subbing and commenting. But that's basically it for today's video, and I hope to see you again next time.